A and B may be different. Couple A may be quite different from what couple B they are doing. That's just the difference, but we say it's inevitable. And today our focus will be on having identified those key elements. Our focus today is to look at rules. How do we do them? We have identified what are those elements. Today we're going to look at how do you cultivate those things that make a good fight. And that is why we are talking about this today. Okay. So we're going to take them one after the other. I've reminded us that a good fight has good rules, must have good rules. Just like every other competition. In a competition, call it football, call it golf, any competition, any game that you have, you must have rules. Even though marriage is not a competition, but because we've identified that conflict is part of it. So there has to be, you have to have some rules in place. And those rules are the things that will help us. And they have advantages. We need rules to ensure fairness, to prevent injury. That's the essence of rule. A good rule will go far toward ensuring a good outcome. So the rules we are going to do now, those rules will help you to get to the core of a good fight. We'll take, how do you cultivate cooperation? We talked about cooperation in it, developing cooperative spirit. How are we going to do that? We have some rules we have to look at. For cooperation to have a cooperative spirit, we have 3 rules. If we observe those 3 rules very well, we'll be able to develop in our relationship a cooperative spirit. And you remember that we talked about cooperative spirit. When we were talking about it, we said it's a situation where in that conflict, the goal is not the goal there is not to win. It's a win-win thing. You are going to win. There's nobody, and there's nothing like, oh, this person is wrong. But what is wrong? It is what is being identified. What is wrong is what is being identified, and not who is wrong, but what is wrong. That's what you do. And we are winning. It's all about we, not about you. It's not a game where somebody will lose. Both of you will not lose. Both of you are going to lose. So that's the focus of a cooperation. Peter. Then let's just take it one after the other. We said there are 3 rules. The first rule here in developing or cultivating that spirit is sharing of withholds. We're going to talk about what it means. We're going to look at also rating rating. We're going to rate I'm coming, sorry, because we have 3 rules. One is withholding of sharing of our withhold. Another is the rating the depth of disagreement, and the third one is agreeing to disagree when necessary. We'll take the one after the other. I'll explain. We have talked about how do we cultivate it. I said there are 3 rules that we have to look at. How do you cooperate? How do you cultivate the habit of cooperation in your relationship in this fight? First, identify rule 1 for cooperation is share withholds. Sharing of withholds. We'll define what withhold is. 2, rating the depth of your disagreement. rating the depth of your disagreement. Thirdly, agreeing to disagree when necessary. In every marriage, there's what we call withhold. There are certain information that you don't disclose often in every marriage. The information you don't disclose. It's not because you want to be discreet or secretive. I mean, it's not because you want to be secretive, but it's something, an inevitable things that happen in life because of the speed of life. There are certain distractions. You have something in mind to tell your spouse. Something happens. You now forgot. You always have something you want to discuss. And somewhere a distraction comes in, a phone call or some event, and you didn't get to convey it, but it was on your mind, not because you really want to be secretive, you want to have something to avoid. No, not because of it. It is mainly because you forgot, because of the turns of event. You now forgot, and you have to say something. You have to go in. I mean, keep it on. So that's what you call withholds. You are withholding the information, but it's not desperate. It's not a desperate thing. So let's not look at it that you are withholding as a desperate. No, it's something because of the speed of life, because of the turn of events, something happened, distraction, and you're unable to convey it to your spouse. But it's information withheld. So that bit of information that you keep to yourself that you've not disclosed to the other party is what we call withhold. But the class today is trying to tell us how we need to share such withhold. That such withholds tend to help us to cooperate. It builds in us. We cultivate the spirit of cooperation. That's essentially what that withhold is. And it can be positive information, bit of information that you're holding. It can be negative. Positive is when you want to express appreciation. You have in mind to say from time to time, oh, you want to appreciate your wife, you want to appreciate your husband for something that he has done very well. But for one reason or the other, you forgot. You did not remember to share that. You didn't remember to share what you had that crossed your mind. It could be negative, that your husband or your wife offended you somewhere. But at the time the thing happened, you would have expressed your discontent. But unfortunately, it happened in an inappropriate place that you can't talk about it. I don't know if that's clear. You say this, the place is not appropriate. It's not an appropriate place where you want to talk about it. You want to share. So you held on to that information. You couldn't deliver. You couldn't express it. That is a bit of information that is withheld. Okay, that is what we are talking. We call information, but it's not a positive. I mean, it's not a negative thing. But like I said, there are other parts of it that are negative. The one that is negative is that you have something to say that is not too pleasant. The other one is you have something to convey to your spouse. Oh, great food, honey. You have a very great meal today. This food is good. Oh, can be parenting. Oh, thank you for the way you handle the children. Thank you. Those are positive information that you would have passed across. But because of distraction, you get so entangled with some things, maybe traffic, or by the time you got to that spirit, somehow they think some other event covered it, and you're unable to say it. I try to prevent that myself at times. As things occur to me, maybe in traffic, I'm in the office, I know that the tendency is that when I get home, so it could be unpleasant. When I get home, I can express it. I mean, I forget it. So what I do, I call. I can pull a call across. But so today we're going to learn how to make sure that those things, positive and negative withhold information, how do we share them? So it is sharing. By sharing it, we develop the habit of cooperation. That is the spirit of cooperation. For example, like I've given already, we talked about, for example, we are talking about positive one, a desire to compliment. Oh, my wife is so beautiful, or an action that is good, but you got distracted. There are negative things. Their spouse has misconducted himself, but because they are third party in your midst, you find that the forum or the atmosphere, the environment is not what? It's not pleasant to talk about it. So what do? You gloss over it. But those are the feedback that we need. Those kind of feedback can be called feedback, but you are withholding it. It's not deliberate. But there are certain dangers. There's a danger in keep oppressing, keep burying your emotion. And what does it happen? That's why you see at times it will just pop up. They have the high tendency of resurrecting those information, those negative emotion, or even positive one somehow, but particularly the negative one, which is very bad. They pop up and even explode when we least expected of them. So that's why we are learning how to share it in order to develop a cooperative spirit in our relationship. So for these reasons that I've given, sharing of information of that nature, that is sharing our withhold. I want us to remember the word withhold. And you are withholding it not because you said discreet, but for something, for one reason or the other, you're unable to say it. At times, even because it's so negative that you don't even know how to, you are scared of, it may lead to conflict, serious conflict that you may not be able to handle. You keep it and it keeps piling. Then they resurrect and explode and cause more damage. So we're going to learn how we should be able to share this withhold. So for the reasons I've given, withholds are very valuable rules and tools for cultivating cooperation, sharing it, cooperation. To share withhold, a good way to do it, it has to be a routine. Every week, you can decide, weekly, Saturday, the days you have freedom, we have free time. You can sit down together and talk about it. Make it a point of it. Let it be something that you do weekly. You sit down, particularly for those of us who are just married. Those younger ones that are just married, it is very important for us to take this to heart. What we do is, you can be weekly, where you have time. You start talking about it. Oh, honey, I forgot yesterday to acknowledge that your driving skill, the way you pull the car, the way you do that, and other things. So, and if you agree, the atmosphere and agree time makes it very convenient for you. You can talk freely. You can exchange it when you don't have an issue. Maybe you can fix any time that is convenient for you when you have time to talk together. And the advantages for that, the advantage of that weekly discussion is that it tends to lower the tension in your relationship. It drops it. There will be no tension because you've given your feedback. You have a way of giving yourself feedback in a very positive way. You will avoid all kinds of needless conflict, and you will notice an uptick in positive connection. There will be positive connection if you keep to this, keep doing that. There's an affirmation. You show appreciation, you express your appreciation, and you show, you also share some negative things that ordinarily, if you share, can lead to trouble. If you form the habit of talking about it, something that a spouse has done that you want to talk, instead of keeping it in your heart, instead of burying it dead and later it will explode, when on such your meetings, you can sit down and talk about it. Write it down. If you think you're going to forget it, you talk about anything that has happened within 48 hours, maybe for 2 days. You've been moving and you just sit down and talk about it, both the positive and the negative. It leads to connection. Compliment. At times I feel like really it happens to me. I don't know about, I know it happens to most people. Your wife has done something positive or husband has done something positive, and you feel like, oh, compliment. Oh, my wife is beautiful. Oh, thank you for the food. That food was something else. But maybe you hurry, you forgot to do that. So occasions like these, times like this that you've agreed to meet, if you make it a routine, times like what it does is that you acknowledge it. That's when you express it. Okay? But there are rules that must be maintained. You have written down 2 positives and one negative. You share two positive. Start by sharing the first two, which is the positive things you want to talk about your spouse, and bury the one positive thing that their spouse has done in the last 48 hours. I hope it's clear. These rules must be maintained. The person on the receiving end, that is, if you are the one that is being told, you are somebody, your wife is telling you, or you are the husband, whoever that is receiving it, at the end of the other person saying thing, you can say thank you. You thank the person, and that includes both the positive, the person has two positive he has shared, and then one negative, all end up in thank you after hearing it. It is not a time to start discussing the major, that negative one. I mean, the tendency is that, oh, you want to quickly know, what do you mean by that? No. Experts have advised that such negative discussion of such negative should be deferred for at least 30 minutes. If at all, it is that negative. Somebody has told you what you did that was not too pleasant. He has given you two, and he has given you the third one. It's not pleasant. So the next thing is to do what? Is you give him 30 minutes before you can now ask for clarification for something else, and so it doesn't degenerate to argument. Okay, so that is how not to withhold. I mean, how to share negative withholds. What are the advantages in addition to all that I've mentioned? It saves hundreds of hours of needless bickering, that's quarreling. It creates a cooperative spirit within the relationship. It keeps you up to date with each other's concerns and affirmation. You have a concern, at times you don't get to talk about it because you've not been sharing it. Okay, you've not been sharing it. Now you are sharing it, and then it has emptied you. The spouse, if it's a husband, he now knows the wife's concerns, and now the husband knows the wife's affirmation. Even the good feedback you got, you take it higher. That's how it does. So it keeps you up to date with each concern and affirmation. I hope I'm not moving too fast. Then we talked about the next rules. Rate the depth of your disagreement. Rating the depth of your disagreement. You know, every time we discuss things in the house, there are things you like, there are things you don't care how it is. I mean, maybe you have something to do in the house, maybe painting of the house, or you want to buy a particular color of a car. You want to do something, a project that requires a joint agreement. There are some that are very passionate about. Some people are very passionate about the color of their cars, passionate about the nature of the furniture, passionate about the style of cooking, passionate about, there are things that you are passionate, there are things you don't even care, irrespective of, it can come either way. You don't really pay attention. It doesn't matter how, I mean, it is just, you just get it. It's not something, whether it's good or bad, you don't. So it is good for your spouse to know the depth of your disagreement with that matter. If it is something that you don't really particularly care about, honey, I don't care. It doesn't matter whether it's red or white or something. Any color you decide to do it. But if it's something you are passionate or something you are particular, you want it in a particular way, you should be able to express the depth of your disagreement with whatever. So you don't give a blanket, check in situations where ordinarily you want the other party to understand your disagreement. You now give, the person has the impression, oh, you don't really care. Maybe he's talking to you and you are distracted. You are watching Arsenal, you are doing something, and the person comes up with a word discussion. Your mind is switched off. You have it has the impression of, okay, you don't really care what the kind of food you're going to eat that time or so. So what this rule is teaching us is that be able to know yourself, whether it's something that you can contend with, and express it, convey it to the other person. That, okay, I'm interested how it goes, or whatever decision you reach on that matter, I'm fine. So you must be able to do that. You must be able to share the rate of your disagreement on that. I don't know whether we're together on this. Can you hear me?
unclear.
Okay, fine. So that is what I'm saying when it comes to disagreement of that. Please. Then we've talked about the rate of disagreement. When your partner rates it, you will have a better idea as to how important it is to he or her, the key element in cultivating it. So I've talked about using the illustration of the painting of the house, but you must be able to convey a feeling appropriately so that the other party will not be guessing. Expert research has shown that the more we are able, we understand how important a contentious issue, where our children will go to school, the kind of things you want to adopt, certain things, some things that are contentious, they differ from time to time. But the more we understand the depth of our disagreement, our understanding, how important that issue is to us, and be able to convey it, the more we understand ourselves. Being able to say, oh, this is how I feel, this, being able to do that. So we should learn the habit of knowing where we disagree and convey it properly. Like Socrates said, Dr. Socrates talked about knowing yourself. Say, man, know thyself. Be able to know yourself, self-assessment, self-understanding, to know exactly where you disagree. If you particularly the furniture, the kind of furniture, the things, being able to convey it is key, so that your spouse will not be guessing, and you know it. The third rule for cooperation, to cultivate cooperation in spirit, we talked about agree to disagree when necessary. What does that mean? Research has shown that most problematic problems couples have, they don't get resolved. You just manage it. There are things you manage. You can from time to time shift grounds, either to the left, just try to woo. There are things you cannot. Why? There are things that cannot be resolved. Certain things cannot be resolved. It's not every issue that can be resolved. There are issues, particularly when those issues are not seen. It's a result of our character differences, and because it's inherent in us. Husband and wife, we all have different character. We have different character and our attitude to certain things. Those are some issues that cannot be resolved till Jesus comes. It can't be resolved because of our differences in our history, our background, or something that will come from. It may not be able to. What you do, you come to a point where you know that is a situation and you manage it. So long as that issue is not sinful, the Bible has not clearly condemned it. And I'll put it further, particularly areas of preferences. Preferences. Don't elevate it to the point so that it becomes sin. It's a matter of preferences. You prefer a particular way, you put it. That's what you do. You manage it. You know your spouse, this is the way she feels, or her attitude, certain things. You know, it is something that cannot be resolved. Such matters are not resolvable. For instance, you married a very meticulous spouse. Your spouse is meticulous, neat, clean, is very concerned with organizing things and other things. Everything, he lays his bed or her bed properly. There are too many things. I'm not sure, and this is somebody, your spouse is not particular about it. He can adjust only to be meticulous, to be organized. It can't be organized as you. What are you going to do about it? No two people are the same when it comes to character issues. The way you perceive things are not the way the person perceives it. But all you can do, you have somebody who is not very organized like you, but you're organized and meticulous, you manage it. For instance, on my table here, my table is always scattered. My pen, and I still be able to identify and walk around it. Once in a while, I clear it. Once in a while, I try to imitate my wife to be orderly in the house. Try to maintain some things, clear up and whatever, but they are still there. There's nothing you can do. She can't start fighting to kill us. We can't resolve everything that These things must be kept here. My shoes must be kept there. But you can just tolerate each other. I mean, manage each other. Let me use the word manage each other. These differences can lead to countless squabbles. It can lead to fight. You are trying to change the person. So you get frustrated because your goal, you are trying to change the person. And that person you can't change such a person. You can't change. It's not something that you can change anybody. What you do in that instance, you manage such matters. It is pointless because you are up against an inherent tendency, something that is in the person. Because you are organized and the person is not organized does not mean the person. So that is one key thing that we need to do about that. So agree to disagree. Each of them trying to change the other person, it will not work. Because of a personality difference, all we do is to manage. So what is the advice? The advice is that when facing such a difference, the couple's skill should be applied, not to solving the problem. You can't, so because you shouldn't put all your energy trying to solve it. What you are doing in that attempt is that you are trying to change the person. All you can do is try to manage it. So here, we agree to disagree on such matters. That is the point here. It creates cooperative spirit. I hope I'm communicating here. Then the next goal again, we talked about, you remember in our core, when we say core element of fight, the second leg of it is taking ownership of what? Of the piece of the conflict pie. The conflict is a pie, and then you have pieces. So your piece is assuming responsibility for your contribution. We've said a number of times that in every conflict, you have a contribution. You may be telling yourself that you don't have contribution, but you have contributed to it. And it's so ownership means you are assuming responsibility. You are taking what you have done, your contribution to that fight. Now we are trying to learn, how do we do it properly? How do we take that fight? How do we take ownership of such fight? Here, good fighters, because we know part of good fighting, ownership, taking ownership of a fight, part of it we agreed when we are dealing with ownership. We said good fighters own their conflict pile. We also said that criticism is coward. It's a coward act, is to criticize your spouse. Criticism is no-go area. Let's remove entirely what the criticism. We don't need to start criticizing your client. We're going to learn how to go about it. We're going to learn what criticism means in a relationship and what it does not. We say criticism is for cowards. We also shared that blame and shame never lead to positive outcome. You want to blame or you want to shame your spouse so that your spouse will comply, which for me, I see some shaming as blackmail, attempt to blackmail your spouse. Okay? I try to see it as a blackmail, trying to blackmail your spouse. That's what I see it. But we're saying that those things, act of criticism, is cowards for the cowards, not for the courageous, which I know none of us here is a coward. Secondly, we say blaming and sharing never lead to positive result. You cannot blame me for act. I will become defensive, or you're trying to shame me, try to make me look stupid. It doesn't bring the best of me. So it is no go area. That is not part of ownership. Thirdly, it takes courage. I want us to know that it takes courage to admit a mistake. That's why I say it is not for the coward. It is only a coward that criticizes. But to take blame takes a lot of courage from us. That's a courageous step. It is very courageous to admit mistake. And I pointed out the other time that the issue now, when you are resolving conflict, it is not who is wrong, but what is wrong. So that your focus does not go to the person. You don't direct your focus to the person. You start diverting to your spouse, start fighting your spouse. No, The focus should be what is wrong, so that is the issue. Okay. The next thing we're going to look at, there are two rules, very important rules, and I want us to pay attention to these very rules because it's something that occurs every day. If nothing else, if we don't get anything out of today's class, I want us to pay attention to ownership, because that's it brings a lot of cooperation, it brings a lot of harmony in the house. The first tools, we have two tools owning the responsibility. The first two tools, the tools are: one, apologize. Apology. Apologize when you mean it. And another tools which we are going to learn here today, practice the XYZ formula. How to communicate. It is very, very important. Once you master this practice, this XYZ formula, if you master it, even in communication outside your marriage, even though we are talking about marriage, even in other communication, if you adopt this XYZ, you'll be a fantastic influencer. You know how to pass across even bitter pills, bitter discussion. I'm learning to incorporate it into the way I talk. Let's take it one after the other. Ownership rule one, apologize when you mean it. We say something like saying, I'm sorry. Most times, very easy for you. You say, I'm sorry, and you want to move on. What we are saying here, I'm sorry, is not good enough. It is not good enough. You need something in addition to that. Don't just want to move on. I was good at that because I just want something. Maybe you have your own agenda. You just don't want to say, oh, I'm sorry. And you hear some people say, haven't I said sorry? And the person that you are saying that thing to, that person you are saying, haven't I said sorry? That person you are telling knows that you are sorry. It's not sincere. You are in a relationship, and the person, the recipient of your bad action, or whoever that is demanding, your spouse or your husband, whoever is at the receiving end, knows that I am sorry is not real. You can tell just because you want to move on. So today we're going to learn how to say it properly. So we've mentioned the fact that I'm sorry is not enough. Your heart must be in it. And there's a way you have to demonstrate to how your heart, how would the other person know that your heart is in it? First, let's look at the original etymology of apology. What does apology, the origin of apology, the word apology, what it means? The word apology means a story, an account. It is a story, so that story must be told. So if you are tendering, you are saying sorry, which is an apology, you're apologizing, and does not contain what a story is, you must tell a story. No wonder, as a young married, I tell my wife, I'm sorry. You say sorry about what? Because the story has not been told. It's not complete. The components are not there. The element of what apology should contain, even without knowing it. She will say, most times, I know a lot of us have experienced it. Your spouse will be demanding, what are you sorry about? And because you yourself, you don't even know what an apology is. What you are saying, I'm sorry, you think it's an apology. It is not an apology. Until the things we are going to discuss are present in that apology. So it is very important for us to look at it. What is an apology? Okay? An apology, I've said, is a story and an account. Account of what? A genuine apology entails a story of wrongdoing and regrets. That's what an apology is. It is a story about a wrongdoing, something that you have done wrong. You are telling a story. And then you are also expressing a regret of what you have done. I've done this. This is the story. And this is my regret. It contains, once it contains it, the other person, it makes it easier for your spouse to accept it. I hope I'm communicating here. It is not just a flippant expression of sorrow. No. So now we're going to look at it carefully. One of the most constant decisions you should ever make is to apologize when you are wrong. Apology is one of the things that helps marriages. And you'll be wondering, why is it that people do not? We know that apology is good. You and I know, all of us know, that when somebody tells you apologizes sincerely, like we are trying to say, and today we've heard that apology means a story and also contains a regret. So you are telling a story and you are regretting it. The person that you are conveying that will be very quick to align with you. And why is it that we don't know do it? Even when we know, at times we demand apology from people. Why is it that you don't give? Or why is it that the person is difficult? Even amongst children. At times the children, you can apologize to that person. Well, it sounds so easy, but you see the child rolling back. Why? Pride is at the center of it. Anytime you see yourself struggling with an apology, if actually you know that you've identified, you've taken ownership of your content, and you see holding back, then there's a pride in it. What are the advantages of apology? What do we gain from apology? One, it has the power to repair harm. You've harmed somebody, and now you say apology. It has the tendency, the power to do that. Two, it tends to mend a relationship. If there's a fractured relationship, it does that. It suits the wound. You've injured the person, and now what are you doing? You're apologizing. It suits the person's injury. It heals a broken heart. It also has the power to disarm your spouse anger and prevent further misunderstanding. Your spouse, it has happened, I'm sure, each time you apologize to your spouse, you see it will change. Even if she or he is ready to attack you or to whatever, but as soon as you apologize, you see how the person's guard will just drop. Pata, pata. I'm sure we all have experienced it. Honey, I'm very sorry for what I did, and blah, 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 you apologize. The very person, it will matter how the person, your mind, your heart will melt. So that's the advantage. So we have this as motivation, knowing the advantage of apology, we'll be motivated to do it. And I say it's something that is constant. Then apology also has a tendency to diminish regret. When an apology cannot undo, yes, most times we are looking at apology. It cannot undo what has been done. It's like a broken egg. You have damaged, you've said the thing. What you have said cannot be taken back. You slap the person, I mean, God forbid, but you have done something, you have done a harm. That harm cannot be retrieved. But what will apology do? People say, I mean, in my dialect in Igbo, it say, ndo is apology, ndo, ana onya. You see, it's an apology, saying sorry, does not heal wounds that you've inflicted on the person, but it does something. It makes it very easy for you to bear the wound. Even though it's not going to take back what has been done, I mean, if it's something that cannot be retrieved, most times cannot be retrieved because you've been harsh, you've been saying something that's unpleasant to your spouse, and it's difficult. Though you can't take it back, but the fact that there's an apology tendered, it takes the negative effect of that action away, and the person finds it difficult, I mean, easier to tolerate what you have done, to forgive you. So that is the benefit of an apology. And the person that is being told a sincere apology will accept it. And with time, we'll be able to accommodate you and forgive you. These are some few tips I want us to have to say, I'm sorry. Few tips. An apology must contain what we call 3 R's. Any apology must contain 3 R's. And what are the 3 R's? 1, it is called responsibility. You must contain responsibility. It must contain regret. It must contain remedy. We'll take them one after the other. These 3 R's must contain in your apology. So if you are tendering an apology to your spouse and you're telling your spouse something, and those things are not present, you know that you've not done a proper apology. Unless the apology contains these 3 elements. Your spouse on his own will sense something is missing and will likely feel so change. So don't deceive yourself. I'm sorry, you go on. No, the person, this thing must be there. So for you to practice an apology. So from going on today, we practice it. I've been doing it, trying to be part of me, you know, to contain my apologies, to contain this thing, but it's not that as easy as we are saying. 1, responsibility. That is the first R. You say something like this: I know I hurt your feelings. You've taken responsibility. The person feels important first and foremost. I know I hurt your feelings. Regret, which is the next R. I felt terrible that I hurt you. That is what? Element number 2. Then the other remedy, the last one is the remedy. What are you ready to do now? I will not do it again. First, responsibility. I'm sorry. I've hurt you. I know that I've hurt your feelings. I've damaged. I've done that. What I said in the presence of the Anolefos the other time, and so what I did, the way I shouted or the way I was thinking, I'm wrong. So I was quite wrong. 2, I said I regret it. That is bad. It's horribly bad. I shouldn't have done that at that time or whatever. I felt terrible about it. 2, I said I will not do it again. I'll try as much as possible not to shout. Please, I will not shout again. I will not do that action that led to that. You see the content of apology. And these things, once these things are done, even if your spouse has a heart of stone or whatever, it will melt. Because if you have seen everything, how is she going to do or he going to do? Will he start beating you also when you have admitted? A child runs to you and tell you that, oh, I did A, B, C. He has taken responsibility. I know that is bad. You've told me not to do it again, and I've done it again. And I will not do it again. 3, most times you find it difficult to even beat the child, even if you have planned to flog the child. Not to talk about your spouse. I hope we're getting that message. Okay. So that takes us to, and one more thing I want to warn in apology, which experts have said. One thing I like to warn us when you're apologizing, so that it doesn't take away your apology. Don't try to explain your mistake. We are very quick to try to, do you understand? Do you know why I did that? No, don't go there. Apologize and leave it. Let it be brief. Your apology must be brief. Your apology must not be accompanied by an explanation. Don't explain your action. Because what is done, that explanation amounts to self-justification. You're trying to justify yourself. It takes away. It means that you've not shown enough remorse. Takes away the remorse. Then, one good skill that we mentioned, how to take ownership of the conflict pile. We talked about the practice of XYZ formula. This XY formula, it is very, very good in communication. I'm not sure it's limited to marriage. It's something that you apply around, because it takes, it helps your relationship with others. These are the rules. Practice the XYZ formula. How does it look like? We said critical comment often ignites a fight. When you start a fight, you want to talk to your spouse, and you start with criticism. And how do you identify critical comment? When you start with you never, you always. That's a danger sign. Things that you need to be very careful with. Those you, never, always are things that we should dread and forget. We have to expunge them from our way of speech. So, and normally it is also agreed that the way you start a discussion, what is called hard startup, the way you start a discussion will determine how the discussion will end. So if you start it in a harsh way, it will end in a very ugly way. If you start by talking to your wife, that's why most times when you approach your spouse and you want to say something, you want to resolve an issue, and you start by referring to the person, that discussion end up in problem. That's why you are unable to resolve certain discussions. You start it and you can't resolve it because you started with criticism, and that discussion will never end well. You can never get. So the purpose of even approaching your spouse is defeated. So every conflict starts with criticism. Most conflict, look at the conflict you have ever had in the house, is because you start with attacking the person. That is why the conflict will never end. You always make us late. Maybe you're talking about instances of going to church. You always make us late. You never pick after your clothes. You never, all this you. There are criticism that we must prevent. You may be tempted to ask, how then do I express my frustration and irritation? There are times you get irritated by certain things. Definitely. And you want to convey it. Yes, there are right way to do it. That's what we are learning today. You are entitled to complain. You are entitled to convey your irritation. But the way you say it is what we are looking at. So that it will be palatable. It will be something that will help to strengthen your relationship. So let's look at it again. I want us to look at how to do that. What research has revealed that it's actually good for couples to complain about what is bothering them. Complain. I'm not saying that you shouldn't complain of irritation or whatever, but it's good for couples to do that. But how do you do it? Why are we going to conflict? You are irritated, you are frustrated, something is happening, but you want to convey it so that you can incorporate that, cultivate ownership. Before you unroll your long sleeve and say, okay, let me dump, because I said it's possible it's for you to complain. But there are ways to make your complaint and criticism. You should know there's a distinction between criticism and complaining. Criticism and complaining, there's a big difference between the two. You should be able to identify what criticism is and when you are complaining. I've told us how it does. That most complaint, critical comment almost begin with you, as you are always, you never. But how does complain? Listen to how complaint happens. Listen, complaint starts with you, yourself. It starts with I feel frustrated when blah, blah, blah. So always start it with how you feel. Try to take ownership of your feeling. So when you start with that, the person is very easy to identify. I feel sad when this thing happened on Monday or whatever, and there, whatever. You're starting with yourself. But when you jump into starting you with your spouse will never take it. And we said that these things, criticism is very contagious. What happens is that in complaint, the complaint focuses on specific action done, while criticism attacks the other party. And what does criticism do? It brings the animal in the person. Criticism causes a spouse to be defensive. It becomes defensive because you are criticizing. But when you are genuinely complaining about something that you're not happy about, and you start with yourself and take it down to where the person becomes an ally. So there's a difference between an ally and has somebody an enemy. And we don't want our spouses to be our enemies. Then there's a formula. How does this formula that we're talking about works? Y, X, I say X, Y, Z. What happens is that X in the continuum, X, what X does, X is a situation. You start with the situation. So X represents situation when we were in the car, when we were in church, or during church service, or during Bible talk, during the Bible talk. Then Y represents what happened in the Bible talk. So when the situation is what happened, where you were when the thing happened. When you do that, so, or it can be something that has, if it's a habitual thing, you can say, okay, when you do so thing. So look at it now. X is the situation, you start with it. During the Bible talk, in the meeting, or when we're with the against, or each time we're with the against, or the last time we're with the against, or wherever, call any name that you are used to, or whatever situation. When you do so thing, I feel so. So Y is the action. Z is how you feel. You're feeling, you're complaining. That's how it is. So when you are on the road, or when we are on the road, when you change the radio station, maybe the person has tuned to the radio without asking me, which is why. I feel like I do not even matter to you. So that is how you take it. Start with that situation. What happened in that situation? And how does that situation make you feel? So you see, you are not being attacked. But it's different when you now say something like, you are trying to convey the same thing. You say, you made me feel like, you give impression that you're the king of the radio, you're in charge of the car. You don't, once you say you made me, that person is already out of it in his mindset. A good example too, for a positive way, complaint is also like last Thursday on our date night, when you call your mom and talk for a half an hour, I felt hurt because it took away our special time with each other. That's a pleasant way. Instead of telling the person, your spouse, you always make us to miss night, or you always miss our date night. You are saying the same thing, but you are saying you always that what it has denied you. You are moved on to the person. You are attacking the person, the character of your spouse. So what does XYZ formula, what does it do for us? Using the XYZ formula, it will help us to avoid insulting and character assassination. You don't assassinate the character of your spouse, and it will affect the person's feeling. It helps you to own your feelings rather than project your frustration onto your partner. You take ownership of your feeling when you use this XYZ formula. You take ownership of it. Instead of projecting or trying to dump it on the way you feel on your spouse, you take ownership of it. It makes me feel. You have not him. It has nothing to do, because he doesn't know your feelings and your thoughts. But this is the way you are conveying it. And the person will be very sympathetic, I guarantee you. Your spouse will be very concerned. Oh, in fact, most times it will elicit apology straight ahead. Okay? Then the next one we're going to talk about is the R in the call. Quickly, that one is very brief and very important too. This, we all cherish to be respected. Husband, wife, we all cherish to be respected. So cultivating the rule to cultivate it. We have all agreed that good fighters stay clear of contempt. Contempt is when you show disdain. You don't show respect to your spouse. You talk to your spouse condescendingly. That's you talk to the person as if you are talking to a maid. Even a maid demands respect. But you are talking to your wife as if you are talking to somebody on a subordinate. Even in that context, as a Christian, we shouldn't even talk to anybody in a disrespectful way. There's a way you talk to your spouse. So nobody tolerates contempt. Not to talk about your spouse, your husband, or your wife. What the element creates, it creates sense of safety. When you don't talk, you respect your spouse, it gives them safety. If there's anything I truly want to say it here, not because my wife is in the picture, I know that I feel respected. Even when she disagrees with me on a matter. I know it's not easy when you feel you disagree with your spouse and you still have to, particularly for a woman who must submit. So if you have an overbearing husband and you are being told back and forth, respect, we know that respect is reciprocal, but there's somebody that it belongs to. God says you have to respect the authority of your husband. That's one big struggle with women. Submission. One day we'll have opportunity to talk about submission, what it means and what it does not mean. So respect is very key. This element creates a sense of safety. Even in a situation where people are disagreeing and quarreling, a heated agreement, inside that argument, inside that disagreement, you are still being respected and you feel still being respected. In our premarital counseling, for marriages, we always say something about in the course of decision making, if you feel respected and valued, even though the outcome does not belong to you, don't feel the outcome you feel it differently. I mean, you don't agree with the outcome, but because you are respected in the contribution in coming to that conclusion, which though you don't own completely, but you feel you will own it because you are respected and your input was taken. So we offer, and it gives us a kind of sense of security. So it's a safety net, but you feel insecure when you are not respected in the marriage. You are treated with contempt. It can be the person doing that could be a wife, could be a husband. When two people remain respectful of each other, they recognize the differences. That we are different, you recognize it, but maintain honor, civility, and value within the relationship. It is not always easy. But the following rules, if we apply some of these tools, we are going to say. One, the first tool is that don't be cruel. Cruel here will be defined as contempt. That's what most experts call it. So don't be cruel to your spouse. Take a time out if needed. We're going to go back to how we tell our children, time out, oh, go to your room, go to that. Yes, we talked about rule 1. Don't be cruel. Contempt is the word many researchers use for cruelty. A renowned expert called John Gottman is one of the best when it comes to relationship, internationally recognized. Anytime you see his book, pick it up. He's an authority in relationship. He identify contempt we are talking about as one of the most important predictor of a divorce. If you see people who are heading to divorce, check their relationship. When a relationship is failing, once there's contempt in that relationship over time, that relationship is heading to the rocks. Contempt, that attempt to make, and it's an attempt to make your spouse a little bit taller. You know how it's very toxic way of talking to you. It is a toxic to marriage. It can be, a contempt can be expressed verbally. It can be non-verbal. You can communicate contempt through many ways, through your hands, through the way you talk to your spouse, through the way you roll your eyes for the sisters. Then you roll your eyes or you behave somehow. You see that the contempt, you see how it is. And what does contempt do? Contempt saps your sense of respect for your spouse and fuel your sense of self-justification or righteousness. So contempt is something that it exists. Contempt as defined, cruelty, being cruel, being contemptuous, you don't respect yourself, you don't respect each other, is a sign for disaster for marriage. And then there's no respect. So that one element of a good fight, if you are fighting and you are not showing respect for each other, it's a bad sign. So even though you are disagreeing, you must respect each other. So that's then if criticism is the barrier, we talked about criticism, barrier to ownership when we are talking about barrier. Contempt is a barrier to respect. If you have contempt, you don't respect the person in your heart. You don't respect. How can you respect the person when you are showing contempt? And the issue of contempt is that it is contagious. It's so toxic that it affects the other person. If I'm contemptuous of my wife, I don't respect my wife, and I'm talking to her, she in turn, like we talk in popular parlance, that respect reciprocal. I mean, it's reciprocal. Even though as Christians, because somebody is ungodly, does not mean that you have to be ungodly, but it's natural thing that we have to be very deliberate about it, not to respond that way. But what it does, it is contagious, because the other person wants to respond too. Unless you make a deliberate effort not to, like I'm reminding us, as Christians, you are not expected to respond in a disrespectful way. Because somebody is ungodly does not mean that you have to be ungodly. It is hard to chew, but that is a fact of it. I always tell myself every day, oh, because my wife has acted this way, must I respond? It's natural, it's so sweet to respond that way. But as Christians, we are told that you should not. That's not how to do. You respect, you have to respond. You're under obligation to respond. Even when your husband is not responding or your wife is not showing respect, you should be respected because God demands of you. It's an individual responsibility. Okay, we talked about that, and I want us to see too that the same Gottman says that contempt is not only the most important predictor of divorce, but it can even predict how many codes your spouse will get. Listen to his quote here. I have a quote here. Having someone you love express contempt towards you is so stressful that it begins to affect the functioning of your immune system. Contempt is so toxic. You are living in a home and you're not being respected, and somebody is talking to you in a contemptuous way. He says it can affect your immune system. It can affect your immune system. Can you imagine? Then what is the antidote? What is the antidote to contempt? How do we run away from contempt? The surest antidote to contempt and cruelty is appreciation. We talked about appreciation. Fantastic. There's nobody here that will say, I don't like appreciation. There's nobody. Dressing well. I remember on was it Sunday, I saw a radio with his new haircut. I'm used to his afro. I thought something, I was just wondering in my mind. I said, what? Something changed about Iradia. You know, he looks younger, he looks finer, he looks, I mean, that is. So after service, I asked him, I'm sure he feel cool that he did the right thing. And then I said, what happened to your haircut? I mean, what happened? He said his haircut, and I now noticed that he was wearing afro before. Now he has changed it to something lower. I said your wife will be fine because she will feel it. Even though she may not be able to see, but when she touches it, will feel like it's neat. I'm sure, Iradia, you felt cool. There's nobody that doesn't like being appreciated. Everybody, you do something fine. At times, I buy something and then I expect my wife to say, oh, thank you. Because that's what I saw. My stepmother, I lived with my stepmother and my father. I grew up without, my mother wasn't there too. But my stepmother is in the habit of each time my father brings in something. It could be school fees they are paid for the children. He will come to say $9. I mean, I know how my dad would do. And then he brings something, maybe brings a bag of rice or something, you know, just some intervention, you know, here and there. Or goes to the market, maybe travels to somewhere and comes back with a lot of things. And I see her thanking her on behalf of the entire house. You know, you can do that to your wife, a good meal. So there's nobody that does not love appreciation. Appreciation builds admiration and fondness. At times I see my wife and say, you look very beautiful. At times when she's maybe doing exercise, I take photograph of her. I'm sure she feel admired, you know what I mean? And it brings fondness when you admire it, you know. So that's how it is. So there's nobody here. And what it does is that it inoculates against, it's like an inoculation, like you pick against contempt, appreciation. So let's start developing the culture of appreciation in our family. The same John Gottman advises us, says couples, what do we do? Going forward, like I'm talking to us today, couples build a culture of appreciation. That culture, let the atmosphere of the house be, develop it. Think more of appreciation, what is good in your spouse. Develop a habit of mind of whereby you scan through the environment. You walk into the house, walk into an environment, you look for things to appreciate about each other. Most times, if you're looking for bad things, you will steal. That's what I've discovered. Since I started learning to appreciate things, I started learning my wife's contribution to things in the house. How she fights to ensure that there's food. How she ensure, at times, I even say, go and sleep. Or I've all gone to bed, she's there busy cooking things, cooking to sort things. The effort she makes, she will drive to her office, get food, and that When I'm even feeling tired, I will even be encouraging her, honey, can't you leave this thing till tomorrow? And they say, no, you see her cooking throughout the night and comes back to the bed around 3 or so, 2. Because she's cooking. She knows that tomorrow she may not be available or whatever. Oh, now that we have a new house assistant, she has to get the person through. And you see her doing most of the things that can be delegated and other things. I appreciate that a lot. I appreciate it. And I try to express it. I may not be expressing it enough, but I know it is there in my prayer. And at times you are praying for your spouse. You tell your spouse that you are praying for your business. You are praying for this. So, because if you scan, you only see some negative things about your spouse. If you are not very careful, you won't see the effort the person is making for the well-being of the children and for the well-being of the entire family, particularly for the sisters. So we have something that we have to cultivate. You have to be very desperate to create a culture of appreciation in our homes. When you create culture of appreciation in your home, it safeguards our marriages against cruelty. What it does is it expunges contempt. What it does. So most times we should show appreciation to our spouse. Then that takes us to another important point on this issue of respect. Take a time out if needed. We always talk to the children. That's another rule. Take time out. Heated argument. When there's exchange, I can tell you there are times both of you will disagree. Much as I've done it over time, you can never walk into us in the house, disagree, but we disagree vehemently on too many issues. We disagree, and there's some agreement, if you're not careful, degenerate, it will spoil the entire day. So skills are needed, how to make sure that disagreement do not degenerate to does not affect the relationship in the home. Particularly when there are children there, and you see husband and wife wearing long faces. What happens there? We now adopt what we call time out if needed. There's need for time out when the argument gets to that. I have my younger sister that each time she has a quarrel with her husband, instead of allowing the husband to take time out, she wants to compel the two for the husband to remain in the room there. The guy wants to step out. She will want to go to bolt the door. And what does it lead to? Beating, massive beating. Because I tried to investigate. Why do you beat your wife? And when the guy wants to step, you hold the guy back. And the guy said, let me step out. I want to go out. He said, you must remain in the house. Time out is needed. Just like children, when they misbehave or when you discover that they're you ask them to go and rest. Go to your room. By the time the person comes, become more sober. So we need it in our marriage too. Time out allows you to do what? To have a deep perspective. When you take time out, it makes you appreciate, or you have an opportunity to be very objective with issues. You have time to reflect on it. It diffuses that tense, heated exchange that would have resulted to some physical abuse. All couples, irrespective of who, you need, whether you're 20 years old or 30 years as married couple, you need a time out. When either person feels upset and negative, you have to take a time out to break, to do that. What are you supposed to be doing during this time out? Some of the things we're going to look at now. Experts say that agreeing in advance is good for us to agree in advance. Most times you can agree on your own how to get it done. Like, look, what we're going to do, anytime we have such a heated argument, one of you, we should take time out. So when the matter is degenerate to that argument, let's leave it, and then you take a time out. It is very crucial. You can agree in advance. It's something that you agree on how to do it. It can be a sign. Somebody may decide to say, okay, I will tap my foot, or I will hold something, just a sign, whatever it is that will make it work for you. But there are some essentials, things we have to look. While in that time out, there are things you need to do. One, agree that you will get back to your discussion within 24 hours. The fact that an issue is heated, you are going out is to have a different perspective. So you have to agree because that decision must be taken. So all you need, you want to go and cool off. 24 hours, I mean, within 24 hours, maybe later tomorrow, we can talk about it. Because the Bible says, let the sun not go out while you're still angry. We can agree because it happened, we can't resolve it, and I needed time to cool off. The idea is urgency. It doesn't mean night. It means because God is not bound by time. What He's saying, let's be urgent in resolving our matters. So you can make sure you come back in the next 24 hours. If you are the one ready to blow, you are the one that is trying to scatter. Stop the conflict by saying, I need a time out. You are the one that is already worked up. And most times when you see such argument, the tendency is that if you're not careful, you become disrespectful to each other. So what do? You demand for time. Honey, let's talk about it later. I need some time to ponder over this. You step out. And also affirm your intention to solve the problem by saying something later. Yeah, we solve this problem. You can say something like, I want to resolve this matter, but I can't do it right now because the way I'm feeling. I'll let you know when I'm ready. Okay? That is very important. Very important. Time off. I would have shared my slide because this thing was not typed early enough. So it's difficult for wasn't typed early enough. Okay, taking time out. We've talked about advantages and reconnect. Taking time out is one of the easiest way to rekindle respect for your spouse and keep a fight from escalating. It de-escalates. It does what it brings down the tension. Instead of escalating, it de-escalates. So when you are overheating, don't be afraid to cool off, calm down, and gain some perspective. One of the most important aspects of a good time out couple is being clear when you are ready to re-engage. So you need to always remember that you need to re-engage. Re-engagement is important. So now it takes us to the last leg of this, our core issues to fight. How to fight, a good element of one of the elements. The last one is empathy. Empathy, we know the last time we discussed about empathy, we say good fighters step into each other's shoe. You trade places so that you feel what you empathize. You feel what the other person is feeling. You have the perspective of the other person. So that is what it is called. Our squabble can be resolved if we do a little more than accurately see the problematic. Try to see the problem from the other person's perspective. Matters can be resolved easily. Empathy is hard work. It doesn't come cheap. It's not natural for us to empathize. We always take our position. It's not natural for us to empathize. I mean, it is not something that comes natural, but it does a lot of good for us. We're going to talk about two things as we are moving towards the closing of the class on empathy. The goal of the empathy, what you encourage in this class is to read your partner's mind. Secondly, set up a prayer. You'll be wondering, why do we have to read your partner's mind? Are we God? Because we say it's only God that sees the heart of a man. And then, so how can we do that? People are said you cannot, I mean, we should not encourage you. You can't read somebody's mind. But we do that every day unconsciously. Every time you tell Because for you to understand, most times you interpret your spouse's action. You try to say, this is what you are thinking, this is what happened. I mean, I know that's the direction you are going. I mean, I know all of us must have been caught. I know that's where he's going. That's where she's going. How do you know that? You got from the person, the expression, the way the word spoken. You see how the person is, maybe by hand or something, facial expression, body language of the person, and the tone, the tonation of the person. So we use what you call mind sight to get what is on our partner's mind. Most times, we don't get them at all. We misinterpret it. But this class is going to suggest to us how we can do that properly. Even though it can never be perfect, but you can practice it because we do it unconsciously and we say it. And that's what psychologists, researchers have said. That ability, that's what we try to attempt is called mind sight. Mind sight, trying to sight the person's mind. We do it. Even though we say we are not God, we can't see anybody's side. Rather than do it in the wrong way, let's attempt something that is weak to see how we can learn. Mind sight talks about it. So we use mind sight in most of the heated argument. In most light chat, we constantly collect clues as to what is on our partner's mind. You are trying to say this is what you are thinking. Like I said, we don't do it well. We misread our interpretation. We receive our interpretation. I mean, we interpret the thoughts and feelings of our spouse wrongly. But what psychologists research says, mind reading, there are things has been suggested we can do in a bid to see. Psychologists calls it empathy accuracy. We can practice something like what this class is going to suggest to us in a bid to, but you will never get it. But what it does, it has advantage. You can sit down with your spouse and tell your spouse correctly. Like you come back from an event, maybe you went to somewhere, maybe Bible talk, church event and something happened there. You're actually, okay, honey, can I interpret your mind, what you were thinking at that time when we were there? You see, it's an attempt. It's not an accurate thing, but you want to attempt. You put yourself in a scale of 1 to 10 and said, honey, that time when Mr. Emme did so thing, I know what was going on in your mind. You were thinking of A, B, C, D. Am I correct? Your spouse may say, yes, correct, but not too correct. You see, now you are attempting. What that thing is doing is that you can misinterpret her and act on that misinterpretation. But now that you are conveying that to her, she understands how your mind was working, what you were thinking. It's also a way of endearing each other. So you are trying to do something deliberate. Ask your spouse, I would like to read your mind. Honey, I want to read your mind. And when she agrees, explain what you perceive and ask for verification by saying, am I correct? How correct am I? You know, you keep doing that. It can give you a clue of what you can do it once in a while, but I'm sure you can't get everything. But your interpretation, so it helps you in your interpretation. The essence of the exercise is that it allows you to put your fears and frustration on the table. What you are thinking, now you are trying to, when she does something like, when she did that, that's what you are thinking. If you are correct. Because most times we just assume what we thought the person was thinking. But this exercise affords us the opportunity of putting on the table and allowing your spouse to assess your thinking, your frustration. It helps you to put yourself in your spouse's shoes and better understand her or his perspective. You may not be accurate. Most times you may not be 100%. Most times you get right, because when you're in a relationship after a very long time, there's a tendency for you to understand each other. I can tell you, even when nobody is in the house, I mean, my wife has not spoken to me. If she's not happy with some situation, even in the midst of all her trying to cover up, I will know That is some. I may not know exactly the content of that whatever, what she's feeling, the extent or the what she actually, but I know that she's not happy. So in such situation, we're encouraged to say, okay, honey, I know you're not happy because of ABC. It may not be true, but it may be true. What it does is that you are putting your fear and frustration and whatever on the table for assessment, for verification. So she can say you are correct. She can say, no, you are not correct. The second rule for empathy is that send up a prayer. Research has revealed the importance of prayer to us. We as Christians, we also know that prayer is important. It's an integral part of our life. Couples pray together, have better sex life. That's what research has shown. When people pray together, because they are close, it results to better sex life. For those of us who are just married, that sex is still at the center of your, I encourage you, even if it's 7/7, go ahead and do it, bro or sis. It's very, very crucial. But as you are getting older, you may reduce it maybe once in a week, and you move on, and you are still fine. But that early stage of marriage, man, go for it, as many as you agree to work on. Then prayer, what prayer does, I saw somebody reacted when I said couples pray together, have better sex lives. But it's true. That's what research has shown. Another thing is that study further shows that 83% of couples who pray together describe their relationship as happy. They are happy, compared with 69% of those who did not pray together. Praying together couples that pray together are also healthier. Physically, they are healthier. You see the advantage of prayer. Praying for your spouse reduces stress, strain in the person doing the prayer, making empathy far easier. When you are praying for your spouse, I mean, I issue part of the list of your prayer point should be every morning I do it over a long period of time. Even when I'm disagreeing on, or we had some little squabble here and there, but I'll still pray. I pray for her and my wife's business. I pray for God for her for giving me my wife. I appreciate it. If you don't pray and thank God for that, you won't be appreciative of what God has given to you. I appreciate her. I thank her. I thank the peace in the house. I thank for her rules. I thank God for giving me a wife that can take care of the children, that can be with me, can understand my excesses, and putting up with me. I know it's a big deal because I have my own problems. All those things I thank God to appreciate. So when you are doing that in the prayer, you can't come and start fighting that kind of you want to destroy everything. No. So it takes away for you, the recipient, the person who is praying. What prayer does is you who is praying. So God expects us to pray because it has something, it has a boomerang effect, something it has that comes back to us because we benefit from it. So praying for your spouse reduces stress, strain in the person doing the prayer, making empathy very easy. In conclusion, spouse who pray for their partner show a great willingness to forgive their partner for transgression. One of the greatest problems we have is forgiveness. You have issue. If you pray in the morning, maybe you have some accumulated problem. You have prayed for your spouse already. Even when the person comes, it's very easy for you to forgive. Even if it does not come in your heart, you're already forgiving the person. So because you pray. So it's very key. Let's be praying for each other. Let's pray for our wives. Let's pray for our husbands. And then because it helps. Then we'll be asking, why are we talking about all these rules? You know, good rules. We need the rules. Imagine where there's no rules, like traffic rules. There'll be chaos on the highway. Imagine you go to Allen Junction and there are no traffic lights and no crash warning. There'll be a lot of crashes. So rules are very important. And the advantages to that, it brings about fairness in it reduces harm and several other things. So rules, those rules we are talking about, they are very important. You are bound to find some of these rules and tools more helpful. It is not everything we are saying that you adopt at the same time. It's not all of them that will be helpful for you, the stage you are. So you just look for some of the rules that you need to work with. And some, as you graduate, you keep, even as I'm talking to you now, there are some of the rules that say applicable to me. after several 20-something years of marriage that I'm still applying. Even in the course of trying to teach a class here, I still know that there are rules I have not been doing very well, that I have to take it higher. So I encourage us to go through this. This is what I have for us on core element of cultivating the core element of a good fight. A good fight has some elements. Those are elements we are talking about. We have mentioned them. We talked about cooperation, talked about ownership, talked about respect, talked about empathy. And now how to cultivate those habits. How do we cultivate those elements? We've talked about this now, all the things we've been discussing, from all the things, apology, respect, contempt, and all. They are the rules. These are the things that will help us to form this element of a good fight. Thank you. God bless us for having the patience to listen to this class. It's now time for question and answer. If we have questions, we can deal with them and quickly before we close out. Thank you. Michael, is it Michael that is available?
I'm here. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you, Barrister Anole, for a very enriching class. I know for myself and my wife, throughout the class, we kept interacting. We're laughing at ourselves at some points because while you were saying some things, I'll point at my wife and say, "That's you that is describing." My wife too will do the same and say, "That's me that you are equally describing." And I think what captured my attention throughout your course of the class was how very explicit you were about certain things, especially your take on the correct way to apologize. I know you've done this before in some way during the series that we did in the marriage class, and to hear you repeat it again and break it down in simpler terms was very, very enriching. And I think that it goes without saying that um, like you said, apology does not heal, but it goes a long way if done correctly in helping the person who is offended to bear with it. And I think the degree of the apology also goes a long way in doing that as well. And I think secondly, you spoke about how character is inherent in us and how there are some things that cannot be changed. And it helps us understanding that principle helps us to pick our battles correctly, especially when there's a conflict in our marriages. It helps us to know what is really, really important that needs to be discussed, that needs to be resolved, and what is really, really on the peripheral that can be overlooked. And I think the overarching theme of your class today for me is the transparency in communicating what we feel, how we feel, and the things that goes through in our minds and in our head to our spouse. And so I want to say a very big thank you for such a wonderful class. And I know that your wife has posted on the chat box that we'll receive the slides on our platform, and hopefully we can have the time to go over it. So like you rightly said, we've all called to a time where we'll take question and answers and contributions, if there be any. So please kindly use the raise hand button so that I can um, ask you to unmute and speak. Mr. Dotton, do you want to speak? Okay, yes. Give me a minute to unmute you. Yes, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Crazy. Thank you, Mr. Anole, for as well. I joined the class a little bit late. I don't know when you guys started. Where one of the takeaway for me is that I really need to appreciate my wife more deliberately, noticing more of her good effort. Something I really have to cultivate. Just last night, I remember she cleaned the kitchen sink quite well. It was quickly clean, and but she left there in a hurry, and she left the whole of the sink clogged. On getting there, I saw the kitchen clean, and I saw the sink clogged. And I was like, how on earth can somebody clean the kitchen? I mean, and leave something like a bar or whatever, clogging. Hello, am
Okay,
I
I think yes, you're here. Please go ahead.
okay? Sorry. So I said maybe that's bad network right there. So I think I would have done better by just noticing that actually she made some good efforts trying to clean the kitchen, even though it was late at night. And one thing I also picked from your class, at least as at the time I joined, was is that we should take some time out to de-escalate, to maybe um, just give ourselves. There's a time for everything, as the Bible says. So those are some of the action points I am taking away from this class. And one very important thing that you also said to me is prayer helps with intimacy, it helps with empathy, it helps with forgiveness, and that's very practical. I really appreciate that. Those ones, I think that would be enough. That would be enough to chew on for the next several weeks. But I have a question right here. The question is, I think you use I like the mathematical model, even though I can't really follow how it aligns with X, Y, and Z axis. You use something like X, Y, and Z axis to explain how we can better ventilate, hear our minds, hear our grievances without escalating conflict. And I have a question concerning that. The question is it okay? I think you gave an example. Is it okay to say on Monday, I'm giving an instance now. On Monday, when we were at the supermarket, you did this. On Wednesday, when we are at the park, you did this same thing. On Friday, when we are at the mosque, you did the same thing. I felt you made me feel, I don't know how you put it. I felt you're hurting me. I felt you said this, but waiting till weekend, that's what I'm trying to say. You wait till weekend before you bring up the issues on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Or should you or should you be bringing up this should I say, instances or cases as they come up? What's the best way to handle such? Because sometimes you don't want to sound like you're nagging or saying the same thing, even though it's how it makes you feel. And that's one question. I don't know if you understand my question.
Why not? Very well.
Okay, now there's another question. If, for instance, my spouse says, I felt you made yourself the king of the radio. You did not ask for permission. Now I'm echoing, should I say, an example you gave. My spouse said something like that. Now, what if that feeling that she's nursing is wrongly attributed to me as her husband? You know that sometimes people have feelings and their feelings is just it may be wrongly attributed to someone else, and you feel like how did I make you feel like that? And you just go like, well, that's your feeling, but well, too bad. So what if your spouse wrongly attributes his or her feelings to you, and say I think you made me feel like, and you're going like, well, sorry you felt like that, but that's not my kettle of fish, right? And what should somebody's response be? Now, uh, if the response you get is waiting on concern me by how you feel, that wasn't what I was doing anyway. So what should someone's response be? So those are my two questions. I hope it's clear, at least to an extent. Thank you very much once again for the class.
Very clear. Your question is clear. That is a nuclear weapon. Now question is very, very clear. And then I know. Okay. The very first one you talked about, Monday, Tuesday, you know, you still discover that in that element there's still accusatory. It is still accusatory. You're still sounds like criticism. The point is that when you follow XYZ formula, you talked about a situation. You raise a situation, maybe in a Bible talk, before we take it to days now. Because that principle, we're talking it under the context of withheld feelings, not accumulated ones. You just accumulate it. No, there are these kind of feelings that you have that you've not expressed it, and then meanwhile it's in you. That's emotional feelings buried in you, buried either positive or negative. Now you are kept, because of course we are told to deal with things like every day, as soon as 21 hours. So it is even wrong for you to keep record till Tuesday to such a time that you start learning it. But this withholding of information, this sharing of withholds, it's something that happens that you've not been able to say it, and it's there. That is in that context of it. So if you look at that formula, what it says, situation, you state the situation, maybe in the Bible talk, during service, during on a last Monday when we are at so place. Then you move into what happened in that place, which is when you now did so things. You on Monday, during the Bible talk, when you raise this question, this is what it makes me to feel. It makes me feel this way. You look at the statement. First and foremost, it's not an accumulated record of wrongs that start from Friday to Monday, where you start talking about A, B, C, D. This is something you do with routinely, and such things that you hold on, that because of passage of time, because of inability, lack of opportunity, you've not expressed it. That's what you call withholds. That has not been expressed. That's in the context of that, not in the context of where you keep something lying on for a very long time. Oh, the person in his mind, who is a disciple, say, oh, you mean you've been keeping this record in your mind and you've not said it? So that one is not, those ones are still fresh in your mind. But we're saying those things that you keep, that if they erupt, if they pop up, it becomes an issue. This is how to do it. So that within every 24 hours, for the last 2 days, not until it becomes 1 week. And such things happen once in a while, except you have a very turbulent relationship. So the formula is making sure that that stink that comes with accusation, criticism, is taken away from you. The situation, which is why in this situation, by reminding the person the event and what the person did in that context and what it makes you feel. Quick takes also the second question you are talking about. The moment the person feels, he's not attributing it to you. So you're entitled to either agree, but it belongs to him. You can't question his feeling. It is personal to the person. What the person is doing is to prevent a situation where he will now shift the blame to you. That person in that context is not telling you that you are the one responsible for his feeling. It's something that belongs to him. It's for you to tender apology if you feel actually that you've wronged the person, or if you are godly, because most of these rules are made for the godly, for people who are willing to work. I tell people as a lawyer, no amount of agreement for somebody who is dishonest that will make an agreement on its own. You put it for dishonest people. There are people without agreement that will fulfill their obligation. But agreement is also put in place for people to also, in case for clarity, maybe because you forgot in passage of time, you talk about it. But a dishonest person, that's why you have people defaulting in loans, bank loans and everything, no matter how in place it is. So the rule is, say this yourself. Let the person assume the feeling. Don't project it to the other person so that the person start feeling you are blaming him for your responsibility. So the moment I say, this is how I feel, I've already assumed my feeling as my responsibility. You can't, you don't know how I feel. It's personal to me. But your action, I'm saying that this is the way it's making me feel. It make me feel inferior. Make me feel inadequate. So that's where the XYZ come in. You state your feeling. So it allows you to state your feeling. Most time your feeling comes last. The person would have listened to the event, what happened, your own action, and what that action elicits in him. He has taken responsibility. Your action maybe it gives you opportunity at that time to explain yourself. No, 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 that's not what I mean actually. But what you say, this is the way I feel. But actually, that's not what I mean. You now have opportunity to explain to your spouse. This is exactly what I was going, where I was going. And it takes us to buy when we are talking about mind reading. Mind reading affords you the opportunity to be sure that your fear and frustration are correct. So that's how they are interwoven. The feeling you're taking, your feeling back to you. You are not blaming your spouse or trying to say you are responsible. No, that's what it makes me feel. It makes me feel inferior. It makes me feel inadequate. It makes me feel like I'm not a parent. I cannot say you are not feeling that way because it's subjective. It's not something I can assess. You should accept that it's conveying. So I either align with you or try to explain my action at that point. That's my response to that. I hope it helps.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It really helps. What I'm trying to, avoid is the impression that, okay, you raise an issue on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it might start looking like you're nagging. And the other person may accuse you, but you've been talking about this, for so long. And meanwhile, you are not really seeing the changes you expect to see. So that can encourage, that's one of the situations that encourages, waiting for a while, keeping quiet for some time, and then raising too much for later. That's what I meant.
We're talking application of isolated issues. When things are isolated, withholds something that you are withholding it because you didn't express it when those events occur. And also you don't want to come across with criticism. It affords us opportunity to complain genuinely, to convey to our spouse the way we feel about an issue, our fear and frustration. So without putting the other person on the defense, like we already said, that criticism is contagious. Like you rightly said, if a person leaves it till Monday, but there's another rule, as you're saying, another rule is kicking in that don't make sure that you accumulate too many things for the day. I mean, don't accumulate it until it escalates. No. And we also talked about that sharing of withholds, that it has to be routinely. Let it be on weekly basis, where we take time to review some of these things that you didn't say on Monday when the thing happened. But don't keep the habit of keeping it. So they're all things that happen at the same time. This principle comes in, this principle comes in. So to avoid unnecessary criticism. And for your client, for your spouse to also appreciate your fear. I can see a radius hand up. Red man.
Yes, Iredi, I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
very well.
can. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Uncle, for this wonderful class. The question is, I know, like, for the elements of apology, I know at some point during our pre-counseling you mentioned it, but I have like a bit of a concern because now I'm actually understanding that concept. But at that point I didn't really like understand it. Like you said, the 3 R's, that's responsibility, regret, and remedy. So, but sometimes I just feel like I need to explain myself to air my own side of the whole issue. Like, hear me out, so that, try to understand why I acted the way I acted, like, should there be room for explanation when it comes to like apology? That's my question actually. Then my wife also has a question to ask.
Yes, thank you so much,
Okay.
Uncle, good morning, everybody. Uncle, thank you very much for this class. Your class made me remember what happened during this week. So I'll follow in line of I'll follow Uncle Dotson's tour of question. So for me, okay, 2 things first. First was the compliment aspect, and I know you really hammered on it during our pre-counseling, and I still mentioned it in one of our meetings. But then, for me, I feel like when you spoke about when Auntie is like doing exercise and you take a picture of her, like how good it makes her feel. I've always said it over and over and over, and I'll continue saying it. I feel like sometimes when I do some things and I really want my husband to compliment me, he's just, even if I know that, or even when I know that he actually enjoys it very well, or is very satisfied with it, I just want him to say something, and he does not say anything. Sometimes his gesture, I'm able to tell that this guy actually likes it, but in my head, can't you just say this thing? And I even go extra mile to ask him, "Oh, do you like this?" He'll be like, "Yes, it is glorious." In my head, how does glorious express or explain something you actually like very well? I can ask him about, "Okay, do you like this?" He can be like, "It's edifying," like all this spiritual concept. And in my head, I'm like, how does this better explain how good this thing is? So that's one about the compliments. Then secondly, when you were talking about conflict resolution and how conflict builds up, I know that something happened in the course of the week. And like for me, I'm easily traumatized by insects, any form of insects. That's why I really don't even like deaths around me. So for some reasons, we had like a get together and we had some insects in some insects infest the house. And for me, it was really bad because there were a lot. And it really got to me very bad. Like it was as bad as I was crying. The days that I had to work from home this week, I did not stay in the house. I had to go to my former disciple's house to work from her place because her place is close to our house here. I had to go to her place. But then I felt like when my husband got back from work and I came back and I explained to him, he made it seem like it is just an insect. And for me, it is actually more than just an insect. I even had to go as far as explaining, like there was a colleague that had a pet, a dog, and the dog died. She came to the office and she was crying. She was very sober and she was crying. You know, when a lot of people asked her, why are you crying? She was like, my dog died. I'm like, your dog died. For me, I'm very emotional. So things like that can also get to me. And I really understood her own point. So for me, having to tell you that this thing is like, it got to me to the point where I cried. I felt like it is something that should also go to him. It just felt like it's just an insect. So why are you acting this way? Even when I get to enter the kitchen to do something, I'm always stamping my feet on the floor to be sure that there's nothing, to be sure that everything had gone and all of those things. But he still kept making me feel like, why you? So I really felt very bad. I felt like maybe he was being insensitive to how I was feeling at that time, or because I'm not a man, I like things like this I should man up, or I don't know. It just brought a lot of feelings to me at that time. So when you just raised this building conflict and or well, my ex-discipler explained to me on how to better handle situation like this, and she also made me understand that the reason why I'm this scared of all of these insects is because I cannot see it. At least if I can see it, maybe I know the points where they are, and that way I can avoid them. But because I cannot see it, that's why I'm this scared. So in my head, if my discipler can actually understand, how much more my husband, who I feel should even understand me better. So all of these things. So when you mentioned it during the class, I just remembered and I felt like I should share it. So maybe my concerns are not very valid, or I'm just being extra about everything. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Very, very, very well. I think we've gone through this during our counseling. If I remember some of the point, what needs to be done is for Heredia to repent. Heredia, because this same issue came up during our counseling. I remember not expressing appreciation. It's not something that comes natural. You need to learn how to appreciate, because your wife has always been demanding for that. You need to learn how to. It doesn't come natural to a lot of people. A lot of people feel like, oh, making head not come swell because you are showing appreciation. You look, during the class, I talked about scanning the environment to look for what is appreciative. Recently, I started telling myself something. If I walk into my children's room, the first thing they hear from me is criticism. I'll be shouting all over. This plate is not out, without spending time with them. So anytime I walk in, I know in their mind, they know that I'm come to criticize. I've never gone there to compliment anything. Meanwhile, I know this principle. I apply it with my wife, but I don't apply it with the children. But it's something that we need because it doesn't come natural. So what I would suggest is always look for things to appreciate in your wife. There are fantastic things you need to appreciate your wife in that regard. There must be something. And another thing is that Don't minimize when somebody tells you something. Don't try to, in counseling, we always say, don't minimize somebody's problem. Don't say, ah, no, nothing there. You are not the one feeling it, because most times it could be me feeling. It may be something that you don't do. And it may be differences because of your personality, like you were talking about something inherently, some tendency that is personal. So when somebody tells you, and in the course of our class, so we talked about the rate of disagreement. She has told you, conveyed it to you, that this is the way she feels. You should take it. It's her own feeling. That's what she does. And don't try to, to trivialize it by minimizing whatever that has been done. Already, I just mentioned something about explanation. We said it during our premarital counseling. I said, don't explain. Once you explain, you are taking away the benefit of that apology. Because we define what apology contains. We said it is a story about your wrongdoing and your regrets. That's all. It didn't say you should go there and start talking about it. It says, take responsibility of what has happened. I've hurt you. Take responsibility and repentance. I've repented from that. I've realized that it's not good. I regret it. Then remedy is how to do it. So there's no room for you to, the moment you start giving explanation, you are self-justifying. It brings in self-justification, which shouldn't be. And your apology must be very brief. So don't go to explain. I know you like, everybody likes to explain. The moment you start explaining, I used to do it. I want to give just why I behaved the way I did. But I discovered that each time I raise it, it takes away that sympathy, that the purpose of the apology. It takes away the apology. And most times we end up quarreling. Most times we end up discovering that that apology will not, is not acceptable to. And we talked about empathy. Empathy, you step into the person's shoe. Somebody is telling you how he feels or she feels. You have to put trade in places. It means trade in places. Take the other person so that you have the same, enjoy the same perspective the other person has on a matter. So that's what we need to learn how to do. And it happens every day. So when your spouse says something, don't minimize, take it like she meant it, because it's something that you cannot verify. It's very subjective. Particularly, you're a man. Most men will tend to downplay some issues. My kids have run away from cockroach in the house or something like that. We grew in the village. I use my bare hand to catch rat. I use my bare hand to use anything, but I try to now picture myself. These people who have never gone to farm, they've never walked on the farm before. In the farm, we come in contact with snake. We chase the snake and kill the snake. You don't expect the same thing from kids brought up in townships. So that's how you trade places, so that you have the perspective of the other person, the recipient of your action. That's my explanation. So what I will encourage you to do, let's do more of appreciation, because we said that is the antidote to what? To what do you call it? To contempt. Okay. I hope that's helped. I think my wife wants to say something too on that. Ms. Oliver, you can go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's been such a wonderful time. Really, really
Good morning,
wonderful time of learning. Yes. Okay, I wanted to speak to Iradia on this issue. Just to add to what my husband said about, I remember when we were having premarital counseling, I personally mentioned that, it will make a lot of difference if husband and wife, like you wake up every morning and part of your regular routine of, taking stock of your day before, taking stock of the day ahead, or looking and projecting the things that you have to do that day and all that. If a part of it, even if it's just for 2 minutes or a minute, to think about, okay, how do I make my spouse happy today? What are the things I could do today to make my wife happy? This starts for you, the solution, getting the solution, or just even knowing what to do, starts with remembering or thinking about, trying to bring up, conjure the things that makes your wife happy, the things that makes your husband happy. What am I going to do today? For me, I know that, okay, my husband is like almost every single day. There's hardly a day that goes by that my husband does not eat one form of pudding and soup. So for me, making my husband happy, one of the things that will make my husband happy is when, okay, he has access to this. Sometimes I have I make every effort. I have like 5 types of soup in my freezer. I'm not saying this is a standard for everybody, but because I'm thinking, oh, one of the things my husband will be happy with today is, oh, if he wants to eat and he has swallow. On Sunday afternoons, by default, we come home, it's rice and chicken. Sometimes we're eating the rice with maybe boiled beans, or we're eating it with vegetables. Sometimes we're eating it with salad, and all that. My husband is not impressed as we're looking, sometimes he eats it, but I will still make provision of, okay, bring out soup. As we're going to church in the morning, bring out a bowl of soup and put it there in the kitchen, because I know that when we come back, Daddy will definitely ask for, swallow. All this rice thing doesn't really, he eats rice when he feels like, sometimes he wants to eat rice. Okay, we made moi moi. He likes eating moi moi with rice. Yesterday, I was thinking he would eat something else. Oh, ask her to boil rice. I want to eat rice with moi moi. So I know my husband likes good food. My husband is a bit picky with food. So I make every effort, in this area to ensure that, okay, he's eating well. He's eating the way that he wants to eat. He's eating what he wants to eat. That's an example. Your wife likes to be validated. She likes to be complimented. So take that as a cue. It makes life easy for you. Some women, you don't even know what makes them happy. It's difficult for you to figure out. Today you do this thing, they are liking it. Tomorrow you do the same thing, they are not liking it. Your wife consistently loves to be validated. She loves to be complimented, And I don't want to take it to the fact that, okay, maybe because of her state, she cannot see physically, but your wife cannot see physically. She's a lot smarter than like 70% of the women that I know. The things that she can do, the things that she's able to achieve, and all that, she's very smart, and I respect her for that. You, as a spouse, being in that gap, you have to bridge that. The things that she cannot see, like she wears her makeup. I've complimented her several times, like, your makeup is so well done. Better than some of us who can see, and all that. She was there on Sunday when I was complimenting your haircut. I said, you look so, she was there. I was doing that because of her, especially, not just to make you feel cool with yourself. I wanted your wife to know 100% how you were looking. And these are the things that you should hold on to. Per minute, let her know that she's doing well. Let her know that she's doing good and all that. My husband has said about not, I'm doing a write-up right now, for Henrietta, that she can post, especially for us women. Things that you don't say to people. Oh, you've added so much weight. A lot of us are quick to just see someone, instead of admiring them and bringing out the good and complimenting them, validating them and all that. We rather just say the negative things. Oh, you are so fat now. Like, thank God, though, he didn't die people belittle and, I'm talking about the issue that she mentioned about ants, and all that. I'm going to give you an example. You may think that, okay, it's bigger than this. Let's not minimize people's feelings. The fact that it's not a big deal for you does not mean that you have to minimize it for that person. Validate the person's feelings, even if you cannot empathize. Even if you cannot relate with it, you can empathize by trying to step into that person's shoes. Sometimes you think about the thing that will make you feel that way, something that could happen to you that will make you feel that way. It helps you understand this person, why the person is feeling that way. When my sister had cancer and she was, I think it was after she had passed, a sister that I respect so much, she's much older than me. I call her auntie. She called me. I remember very well that I don't know if that can ever leave my mind, my heart. I was in the toilet. She called me and I took her call because it was her. If it was some other call, I may have just even maybe ignored it until later called the person back. I wasn't even in the mood. I wasn't having it. This person tells me, oh, you are trying to minimize my pain while I was mourning. She made a statement and said, oh, would you have rather that she became a vegetable and you have to be carrying her all around? My sister just died after suffering cancer for months. And that's what you say to me. Are you saying, oh, I should be rejoicing that, oh, she didn't become a vegetable and we have to be carrying her? That was so insensitive. I wasn't having it. I gave it to her. And I went off the phone. I don't want to say what I said to her, but one of the things I made her know is, fine, she has died. She didn't become a vegetable, but she didn't have to have cancer in the first place. It was one of the things I told her. So let's be very careful, at this point, everybody, including me, I'm still learning. When people are, somebody has an accident and you say, thank God, it's only the fractures, thank God that he didn't die. If someone's child is lying in bed there and is going to be lying there for weeks with broken bones, don't minimize that and say, oh, what if he had died? Why are you crying that he has fractures? What if he had died? Is it better that he would have died? No. Sometimes our Christianity, we try to spiritualize things. Like, oh, you should be grateful. Yes, the person will be grateful that the child didn't die. But don't try to minimize the fact that that person has to deal with the child's broken bones and being in the hospital for maybe weeks, and all that. Let's not do that. So, Iradia, wake up every morning knowing that, look, my wife likes this. She likes to be complimented. It gives her joy. Give it to her. Stop withholding it. Give it to her. And I speak to every single one, especially us sisters. Sometimes we sit back, we want our husband complimenting us, we want our husband validating our feelings. Sometimes we don't do that. I feel like I don't tell my husband I love you, I tell even my friends that are close to me, when we are going through things, I tell people that I love them. I tell my children that they love them. I don't tell my husband enough because I feel like, okay, my actions show that I love him. The things that I do show that I love him, But saying it goes a long way. Like Mrs. Iradia said, Okwe said, sometimes she knows, she feels it, but she wants to hear it. So let's say it. Let's have these things. Let's say it, and make our spouses happy deliberately. Sometimes you feel like she doesn't do it, so why should I do it? It doesn't go that way. The more you do it, the more the person appreciates it and begins to do that thing. Amen.
Okay, let's take few more questions and then move on and then wrap up for the day. One or two more questions, we can wrap up. Any more question, Korede? Any more question? I should have not been disconnected. Okay, go ahead, Doctor.
Thank you very much, the analyst folks. Because of Sam. Okay. I heard your response to the question Iradia raised about isn't there any room for explanation? Sometimes it just feels very uncomfortable, having to bottle up an explanation that you believe is valid. For instance, something that happens in my house, for instance, my wife does not like, even if it's an if it's an ant in the toilet bowl, the toilet bowl has to mirror her face. She needs to see everything like clear. And for me, an ant is just an ant. Those kind of ants. Sometimes you try to eliminate, try to flush, and it just doesn't go. So you know, and my wife comes with, I've been telling you this. I've been telling you I like my this quickly. I want to be able to explain that. So, I hear what you say about expressing or hearing our mind the right way. But I want to be able to explain, okay, this is the effort I've made. So isn't there any way that I can do that at all? Is that making us an excuse for what's happening, even after saying sorry? I don't know if I'm
That is
clear.
very, yes, you're very clear. What we normally teach is that that discussion is not a time. That's when that issue, you are making an apology to somebody who is aggrieved. It's not an opportunity for you to raise your own issue. It does not call for, it's not an occasion for you to bring up your issue. It's an occasion to deal with that one that has popped up. Your apology, it is what in focus, what you have done the person wrong. After all, you didn't initiate it. You would have initiated it earlier. So now, such situation that you want to talk about her, I mean, on the aunt or whatever she are concerned, and you have reservation, you have explanation to make, could be cause for an entire different occasion for that. You can isolate it. It could be part of those withhold information that you share 2 days or so. After you have shared 2 positive things, you can talk about some negative things. That this is why you cannot explain and talk about it. Those things, the way it makes you feel when you try to explain. So at the time, it's not an appropriate time. What we say is like what in law we say, forum not convenient. That time is not the appropriate time for raise such issue, because it undermines the importance of apology. It belittles it, it minimizes it. So it takes away. The person may be thinking that, oh, it's because you want to say what you want to say. That's why you're apologizing. So leave the apology time. Let's enjoy the apology and then eventually come over to it. That's what I'm saying. So that's just the method you do it. You must talk about it. You are entitled to complain. You have frustration and irritation, but not when you are tendering apology. Because at that time, it's not the time for it. There's an appropriate time. It can be an independent issue that to be isolated and be dealt with. So you talk about it, and maybe there's no issue at all. Honey, just from the blues, I mean, when you are relaxing or something, you bring up some such issue and talk about it. I've learned to do that a lot. Before, it is when my wife is raising an issue of concern that I'll bring my own. At times, it happens to her the other way around too. When I'm raising an issue, it will not remind her of some other thing. Or when she's complaining about something, that's when I'll bring my own complaint. Nothing will get resolved. So it's not healthy. That's why when apology is being tendered, don't go there and start giving explanation. Okay, Korode. I hope it helps. Korode, go ahead.
Good morning, Uncle. This is Kome. Thank
Okay,
you very
Kome,
much, class. I know for me it was more of a reminder. These are things we have learned during counseling and also things you have taught that we have heard, especially on the apology. But my question is about you talked about when we don't leave issues aside and we'll come back and readdress. Now, for somebody like my husband, he's the person that likes to talk about his feelings on the spot. And I'm not that kind of a person. I don't like I don't like expressing my own anger or my hurt or expressing myself when I feel bad on that same spot. Now, in situations like that, when he's expressing himself and he's angry, and for me, it's like, I don't like the way you're saying this, but just for peace to reign, I just tell him sorry. And it just ends there. We don't talk about it again. Now, how do we better manage issues, in terms of not expressing, discussing it and making sure there's a resolve? Because in situations where maybe I do something at that spot and he's quick to react, like, I don't like this, I've always told you this, I've always done this. And for me, I'm like, you have come to a while again. Sorry, let it end there. And I know, yes, it's not enough. Saying sorry is not enough for him, but we don't come back to readdress those issues. We don't come back to discuss it. Everybody just moves on. So how best do we manage our feelings when we are not happy about each other, maybe expressing it on that same spot? And for somebody like me now, I don't, even when he annoys me or he does something I don't like, because I don't say it on the spot, I just I keep burying it and burying it, and until something happens and then I explode, you know. So I just want to be asked how best we can better manage each other's temperaments when it comes to how we feel about each other when we're not happy about certain things. I don't know if my question is clear.
Question is very, very clear, crystal clear. You said this, these principles that we're teaching, they are interwoven. How to resolve things, how not to allow matters to be swept under the carpet, and also the responsibility of being able to say something with a lot of respect without contempt. We talked about respect, not being cruel. Much as you are ready to express yourself, you must also you remember that you have a responsibility not to be contemptuous in the way you convey your feeling. You must show respect. If your wife is disrespected because you want to say your mind, I mean, you are offending the rule of relationship. You want to say something very good, what do you call it? It's a trait. And also, we have to recognize gender differences. That's part of empathy. You have to also see things from the point of view of your wife, how your wife sees things, so that you will be able to know that this is time. It's not every time that you need to. Timing is very important. You who want to express yourself have a responsibility. The person who wants to differ an issue must be able to convey to in that same time. Honey, can we talk about this matter much later? And remember that you have a responsibility to say, okay, let's revisit it at a particular time, and it will be your responsibility to revise. Let's talk about it. So there must be some balancing. How you convey your frustration, that's one. You is conveying your frustration. You must find a way of conveying that your frustration. And the person that does not want that confrontation there and then will say, must request for the matter to be deferred to a time that's convenient when you are in a better position, and you must also be the one to revive that discussion. So for Korede, who is very quick to express himself, you express yourself, but don't be disrespectful. And also recognize the fact that your wife wants, if she's not prepared for the matter can be deferred to a later time for discussion. But no issue must be left undiscussed. And with the principle of sharing withhold, you must not allow, because you say it's got to be routine, it has to be weekly when we talk about things. Even this issue of the way you respond and the way it's issue for discussion. But it is the way, when matters come up, I don't like the way, it makes, when you react this way, it makes me feel this way. Can we have a change? That can be an issue for discussion on a day. It can be one of those negative things that you hold back. Perhaps both of you have not sat down to analyze this issue. Perhaps he has not known the depth of how you feel when he behaves this way. So there's time for you to sit down and talk about it. So what I'm trying to say in effect is that there's a balancing. Each person has a responsibility. The man who wants to discuss matter immediately must knows that he must have a way of saying it in a gentle way, where a wife does not feel devalued, doesn't feel disrespected, doesn't feel that you're shouting. Much as you have a point, you don't blow it. The Bible talks about, the book of Proverbs talks about that it's only a fool that vents his anger completely. You want to vent your anger because you are feeling no. What you give time, you give a thought to it. You don't just vent because I have it. You want to feel free. I mean, you want to empty it. No. It is not, it's only vomit. You don't vomit everything you have. Vomit belongs to the toilet. Doesn't belong to you pouring it on your spouse. So you want to say something, you must say it in a decent way. That's why we have rules of engagement. One of them is that respect. And when somebody feels over time, you've known that your spouse is disrespected, when you just say things spontaneously without reservation. And you too have to adjust. Remember that the fact that your husband wants this matter to be laid. So what happened? I have to make out time for that matter to be discussed. So that's my view. There must be balancing, and there must be a portion reminding ourselves of responsibility each time. So every right has responsibility. Everything has responsibility. The person who is slow to discuss issue has a responsibility. The person who is on the spot want to discuss everything has a responsibility. How you must convey that. I mean, it's free. I think somebody like our evangelist in the Emma, you're there. You can add more to that. You might want to say something.
Not really. I'm just here to learn. I just want to say thank you for all you're doing and every single thing. I only thought about speaking to Iridia maybe after now. I think there's compassion is something that people have to also grow in. We need to grow to be compassionate, and all of these things that we are teaching here are things that you have to also grow into. It's not overnight, but you have to be committed, and I'm sure everyone here have no doubt that we are all committed to it. So you're going to try. Maybe the first time you hit, maybe the second time you miss, but have a commitment of growth, and that you're going to keep getting better and better at it. Even when you think you've really done very well, some things might still happen. But I think we all need to be visibly compassionate to one another. Also learn compassion and also learn humility. They are not things that we are born with naturally. They are things that sometimes we might have to learn, especially genuine humility, not the one that you're humble because somebody has a gun on your head. That kind of humility. Genuine humility, genuine compassion, genuine, even communication is a skill. You have to learn how to say the right things when you're supposed to say them. And if, by adventure, the wrong things come out, like the Bible says, there's no righteous man who lives without having a fault. And if you are able to control your tongue at all times, then you're a perfect man. Then you don't need any other thing. But of course, that we all falter. So I think it's something we need to constantly work on, no matter how long you've been married. Constantly work on. And after a while, you'll be on autopilot. Yes, as if everything you say just falls where it's supposed to fall. But every now and then, like our brother said, you might be able to learn that skill with your wife or with your children, and you're not able to develop it with the other person. You might be able to learn it with the disciples in your ministry, but at home you are still struggling with it. So that means that we are all in a process. So we have to keep getting better and better. But that's just my own contribution. But well done, everyone. Thank you for everybody who has shown up. I think I'm happy it's been recorded. And I think the link should be shared far and wide for everyone to just learn these great nuggets this morning. Thank you, especially for the annual folks for taking this time out. Thanks.
You're welcome. Nice having you around. Yeah. Okay. And any other person? Otherwise, we'll call it a day. Time is far.
Yeah,
So
I
ready?
think, yeah, I'm standing in for Kuridi. That is not available at the moment. I think it's been a great session this morning. Thank you, Mr. Olifo, for guiding us through this class, and we look forward to more classes like this. And thank you, everyone, also for joining from various places, far and wide. God bless you. I think we're closing out with a word of prayer. So let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, we're so grateful for today, so grateful for giving us life, giving us the privilege, Lord, to be alive, Lord, the air that we can breathe in, the food that we can eat, clothes on our back. I'm so grateful for this class that we can have where several issues pertaining to marriage can be pointed out and can get correction, can get rebuke, can get training as to how to foster a better relationship, Lord, with our spouses, Lord. We're so grateful for that. Thank for the wisdom you've given to them. Thank for the gift, Lord, for everything, Lord, that they have been able to pour into our lives, Lord. We're so grateful. I pray, Lord, that you're going to enrich them, going to give them more insight, give them more wisdom, give them more understanding, as how to tackle challenges, Lord, in several marriages, Lord, that may come up, Lord. I pray, Father, for several marriages that in our church. I pray that you want to help us, Father, to be united, Lord, to fight for unity, to fight for peace, to fight to live happily and stay together. I know several issues will come up, and several issues will definitely come up. I pray you give us the patience, Lord, to weather the storm, Lord, the heart, Lord, to forgive. Give us, Father, the humility also, Lord, to apologize, Lord, and to do it in a godly and right way, Lord. Thank you for all you've done. Be with everyone here. For those that are not able to join, and for those that will be listening in the nearest future, I pray, Lord, that they will also be impacted, Lord, by this class, Lord. Guide our way today, and as we all go out or stay at home, pray that you protect and guide us. Forgive us of our sins, Father. And just now pray with thanksgiving. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.